day 83. Nancy Guthrie is still missing. Her digital pacemaker has gone completely silent. The physical DNA samples and hair fragments now sit under a microscope at a high-level FBI laboratory in San Francisco. And Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos still refuses to speak a single name. This is not a cold case begging for random leads. Investigators have security footage from the scene. They have direct forensic evidence pulled from the concrete. They possess a digital timeline broken down to the exact minute of the attack, yet an unspoken gag order hangs heavy over this entire active investigation. The silence from the police department is absolutely deafening. A massive suppression of public information is playing out in plain sight. We are looking at a highly coordinated, violent abduction of an 84-year-old woman. Nancy is the mother of prominent television host Savannah Guthrie. The stakes could not possibly be higher. The national media pressure is immense. Yet, the public is being kept intentionally in the dark. Why is the primary law enforcement agency protecting the details of a suspect when the physical evidence is sitting right in front of them? What specific detail are they waiting for? Someone knows exactly who walked onto that property in the dead of night. Someone knows whose DNA is currently mixing with the victim's blood recovered on the porch. The armed suspect is still out there breathing free air. The dynamics of this investigation are shifting by the hour. We are tracking every single forensic update here on Tracking Evil with John. Hit the subscribe button right now to follow along with us the exact moment an official arrest warrant finally drops. The sanitized details released so far paint a terrifying picture of what authorities are desperately trying to keep hidden from the public eye. We need to look closely at exactly what the press has been allowed to know up to this very moment. It is the night of January 31st, 2026. Nancy Guthrie has severe mobility issues and relies heavily on daily medication to survive. At 9:48 in the evening, her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, brings her back to her private residence in the affluent Catalina Foothills neighborhood. 2 minutes later at 9:50, the heavy garage door closes shut. Cioni drives away into the dark. The house grows completely quiet. The neighborhood sleeps. Then the established timeline fractures. At 1:47 in the morning, an unidentified masked figure steps directly onto the property. They locate and permanently disconnect the front door security camera. The morning light reveals an absolute nightmare. Local police units arrive at the property just after 12:15 in the afternoon on February 1st. They step onto the property and immediately identify clear signs of a violent crime. They find Nancy gone. Her personal cell phone is still inside the house. Her crucial daily medications are left untouched on the kitchen counter. Outside on the front porch, investigators find a concerning amount of fresh blood. Forensic teams rush the samples. Rapid analysis quickly confirms the blood belongs entirely to Nancy. A powerful and high-profile family is suddenly plunged into absolute terror. The entire property is locked down. The crime scene tape goes up around the perimeter. The official press briefings become incredibly short and frustratingly vague. Sheriff Nanos briefly describes the interior of the home as unusually messy, but flatly refuses to elaborate on what that actually means. Rumors of unverified Bitcoin ransom emails begin to circulate among local reporters. The authorities push back hard against the leaks. That is the neatly packaged version of the story broadcast on the nightly news. That is the simple timeline the authorities want you to look at. But the raw digital data pulled from the hidden devices at the crime scene tells a much darker story. The physical evidence collected from the Catalina Foothills property creates an immediate and terrifying psychological profile of the suspect. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is not operating in the dark on this case. They possess the raw, unfiltered security footage from the scene. They are staring directly at a heavily armed individual. The intruder is captured wearing a heavy, long-sleeved jacket. Every single inch of their exposed skin is deliberately and completely covered. They are wearing thick tactical gloves. They are carrying a clearly visible firearm. They have a large, dark backpack secured firmly to their body. This specific level of preparation screams of a highly professional operation. They are dressed exclusively for a calculated tactical strike in a residential zone, yet their chosen target makes absolutely no logical or strategic sense. They bypass countless other wealthy properties in that sprawling, affluent subdivision. They walk straight past homes filled with easily accessible luxury goods and cash. They moved with absolute purpose toward a specific residence housing an 84-year-old woman, a woman who struggles daily with severe mobility issues. A resident who relies entirely on daily medical intervention just to survive the week. A random neighborhood burglar does not suit up like a paramilitary operator to steal from a vulnerable elderly resident. A burglar wants a quick entry and a completely silent exit. A professional hitman does not leave a chaotic physical mess behind. Sheriff Nano stood in front of the local press and specifically characterized the interior of the home as unusually messy. This specific phrasing from seasoned law enforcement is incredibly calculated. It is a deliberate choice of words designed to hint at violence without confirming it. A standard robbery leaves a highly recognizable pattern of property destruction. Drawers are violently pulled out and dumped on the floor. Closets are aggressively ransacked. Small valuables are quickly swept into bags. The destruction always has a clear financial motive. But the victim's personal cell phone remains sitting completely untouched inside the residence. Her crucial life-saving medication is still exactly where it belongs on the kitchen counter. The intruder actively ignored the most easily fenced high-value items sitting in plain sight. The mess inside that house was not created by a frantic search for untraceable wealth. It was created by a violent physical struggle. The massive discrepancy between the heavily armed intruder and the highly vulnerable victim shatters the burglary gone wrong theory completely. The authorities are looking at a targeted, forceful abduction. Someone specifically wanted Nancy Guthrie removed from that house. The tactical gear suggests a carefully planned and rehearsed extraction. The chaotic interior suggests something went violently off script the moment they breached the residential perimeter. This glaring contradiction is exactly what the police are trying to navigate behind closed doors, right? Now, they are holding back the specific nature of that interior mess for a very strategic legal reason. It is strictly classified as holdback evidence. Only the true perpetrator knows exactly what was broken or moved inside those walls during the struggle. If someone confesses to the media, the police will ask them to describe the mess. If they cannot describe it accurately, they are lying. The public is being fed a carefully constructed narrative of institutional confusion. The investigators are secretly building an inescapable legal trap. They are waiting patiently for the suspect to make a public mistake. The contradiction between a professional disguise and a messy crime scene is glaringly obvious to criminal profilers working the case. The suspect tried desperately to present as a ghost in the night, but they failed. And that catastrophic flaw in their operational security is exposed brilliantly in the security footage right before the lens goes completely dark. The digital clock on the security feed reads exactly 1:47 in the morning. The masked figure is standing directly in the center of the frame. They have executed their stealth approach flawlessly up to this exact second. They are completely unidentified by any visual facial features. Their face is entirely obscured from the glowing infrared sensors. Their hands are thickly gloved, leaving zero latent prints on the exterior surfaces. They easily locate the glowing lens of the front door camera. Their immediate goal is tactically obvious to anyone watching. They need to disable the live feed before making a forced entry. A seasoned professional operator would simply cover the lens with dark tape. They might instantly sever the hardwired connection with a specialized tool. This suspect does something entirely different. According to detailed reporting by the Arizona Daily Star, the heavily armed figure stops moving entirely. They reach out toward the decorative landscaping planted near the porch. They deliberately pluck a single leaf from a nearby plant. They hold it up right in front of the glass lens. They use a flimsy piece of foliage to block the digital view. This action is captured in high-definition video. It is a stunning deviation from their established tactical profile. This is not the calculated, efficient behavior of a cold professional. This is a bizarre, deeply amateurish mistake. Or it is a highly specific psychological message deliberately left for the responding authorities. Why would a heavily armed intruder wasting precious seconds interact with the front porch foliage? The true crime internet community is currently tearing this specific detail apart pixel by pixel. Behavioral profilers are actively debating if this shows severe anxiety taking over the suspect's motor functions. Some argue it shows supreme arrogance and a mocking attitude toward law enforcement. Drop your own psychological read on this bizarre action down in the comments below right now. Does a hired hitman stop to play with leaves, or is this a panicked amateur rapidly losing control of the situation? The authorities have analyzed every single frame of this interaction in their digital labs. They have watched the subtle body language of the reach. They have precisely measured the height of the suspect against the wooden door frame. They have assessed the unique gait as they approach the camera lens. They are no longer looking for a phantom in the night. They are looking at a very specific human being making a highly specific physical movement. The Pima County Police Department is remaining completely silent because they already know exactly who was standing on that porch at 147. The leaf plucking incident gives them a crucial behavioral fingerprint to match against their primary suspect. If the intruder made a foolish, unforced error in front of a glowing camera, they almost certainly made a physical, biological error during the violent struggle inside the house. The local police are projecting a public image of a stalled and frustrated investigation to the media, but their internal focus is already razor sharp. They are simply waiting for the forensic science to catch up to their undeniable suspicions. The gap between knowing who did it and proving who did it in a court of law is massive. They need the absolute certainty of biological evidence to secure a conviction. If they firmly know who was caught on tape, why is the sheriff still refusing to issue a public arrest warrant? Because the investigation is a legal minefield of reasonable doubt. And early in the chaotic first 48 hours of the massive search, their attention was aggressively pulled in a completely different direction. The public and the media immediately focused their suspicion on the last person to see Nancy alive. Tommaso Cioni became the center of a massive digital firestorm. He was the one who pulled into the driveway at 9:48. He was the one who watched the garage door close at 9:50. This leaves a terrifyingly narrow window of only 2 minutes between his departure and Nancy being left completely alone. To many armchair detectives, the timing felt far too convenient to be a coincidence. People began to speculate that the garage door never actually locked or that an accomplice was already waiting inside. The pressure on Cioni was unrelenting. But the Pima County Sheriff's Department took a very different stance almost immediately. They moved with surprising speed to publicly clear him of any direct involvement in the abduction. They did not do this because they liked his story. They did it because they possess a witness that cannot be intimidated or coerced. While the world was looking at the son-in-law, the FBI was looking at the data server, Nancy Guthrie has a digital pacemaker. It is a sophisticated piece of medical hardware designed to monitor her heart rhythm every single second of the day. This device is constantly communicating with her personal cell phone via a secure Bluetooth connection. In the early hours of February 1st, while the house was supposedly silent, that device was recording a high-stress event. The data shows a sudden and dramatic spike in her heart rate beginning at 2:12 in the morning. This is the exact moment the motion sensors around the property were triggered. Nancy was awake. She was terrified. Her heart was racing as the intruder breached the interior perimeter of her home. The police do not need Cioni's testimony to prove when the attack started. They have the digital heartbeat of the victim stored on a secure cloud server. This biological evidence is far more reliable than any human witness could ever be. It confirms that for over 4 hours after Cioni left, Nancy was alive and unharmed inside her home. The suspicion on the son-in-law was a massive distraction for the public, but for investigators, it was a closed chapter. They moved their focus toward the forensic evidence left behind on the porch. They are now looking for a person whose DNA will match the unknown samples recovered near the bloodstains. Every single move the police make is being recorded on our live case tracker. Click the subscribe button and turn on notifications to see the exact moment the forensic lab releases the final suspect profile. The investigation is currently navigating a series of deep and troubling complications. The discovery of the blood on the porch changed the entire nature of the case from a missing person search to a violent felony investigation. Blood on the exterior of a home suggests a struggle that the suspect could not contain within the walls. It suggests Nancy may have tried to escape or that the intruder was incredibly careless during the extraction. Then there are the ransom emails. Several local media outlets reported on a series of Bitcoin demands sent to the family in the days following the disappearance. The messages were cold and demanding. They claimed Nancy was being held in a secure location and would be returned only if a massive digital payment was made. But the FBI has remained notably silent regarding these communications. This suggests a major contradiction in the evidence. If this was a professional kidnapping for profit, why was there a violent struggle that left a trail of blood on the porch? Professionals want the victim healthy and mobile to ensure a payout. A bleeding or injured victim is a liability that complicates the entire logistics of a kidnapping. The presence of blood suggests the motive was not money, but something far more personal and visceral. The emails might be nothing more than cruel hoaxes from online trolls looking to capitalize on a high-profile tragedy. Or they could be a desperate attempt by the suspect to throw investigators off the trail of a much darker motive. The police are now dealing with two completely different stories. One story is a tactical kidnapping for ransom. The other story is a violent personal attack that ended in an abduction. The tension between these two theories is what is keeping the sheriff from speaking. They cannot afford to make a mistake on a case with this much national visibility. They are stuck in a valley of uncertainty where the evidence is piling up, but the final conclusion remains just out of reach. The clock is still running. The local community is becoming increasingly frustrated with the lack of progress. They see the police holding press conferences where absolutely no new information is shared. They see the forensic tents finally being packed up and moved away from the house. It looks like the trail has gone cold. But the investigators are not giving up. They are simply moving the battle from the crime scene to the laboratory. They are waiting for the one piece of evidence that will bridge the gap between the chaotic mess in the house and the identity of the person on the camera. They are waiting for the final report from San Francisco. And that report focuses on a very specific digital signature that was captured at 2:28 in the morning. The digital heartbeat of Nancy Guthrie provides the most chilling evidence in this entire investigation. Her pacemaker is not just a medical device. It is a forensic clock that recorded the exact second her life changed forever. At precisely 2:28 in the morning, the secure Bluetooth connection between her pacemaker and her bedside cell phone was permanently severed. This was not a technical glitch. In a modern residential home, a Class 2 Bluetooth signal typically maintains a stable connection within a radius of approximately 10 meters. The sudden loss of signal at 2:28 tells investigators exactly when Nancy was physically forced out of that house and beyond the reach of her own phone. This is the peak of the forensic timeline. It proves the intruder spent 16 minutes inside the residence after the initial heart rate spike at 2:12. 16 minutes of terror. 16 minutes that the police have reconstructed using the digital footprints left behind. While the public waits for a face to appear on the news, the FBI is already looking at a much more revealing profile. They have the results from the hair fragments and the biological material recovered from the porch. They have sent these samples to the specialized lab in San Francisco that recently cracked the most difficult serial killer cases in the country using advanced genetic genealogy. This is the strongest theory currently driving the investigation behind the scenes. The police are not looking for a stranger who wandered off the street. They are likely looking for someone whose DNA is already known to the system or whose family tree is being mapped out by federal experts as we speak. Every second of silence from the sheriff's office is a calculated move to prevent a flight risk. They are waiting for that one perfect match that will turn their strong suspicions into an airtight legal conviction. This investigation is moving toward a massive breaking point. Tracking Evil is monitoring the federal database for any sudden updates in the Guthrie case. Click the subscribe button and join our community of over 1 million observers to ensure you are notified the moment the handcuffs click shut. We are witnessing a case that is far from cold. The investigation is currently in a state of high tension. The forensic tents are gone, but the digital search is expanding globally. Investigators are still combing through Nancy's personal history and the professional connections of her high-profile family. They are looking for anyone who would have the intimate knowledge required to bypass the security protocols of that specific home. The sheriff's department remains under a self-imposed gag order for one simple reason. They are protecting the integrity of the upcoming trial. They know that in a case this high profile, any slip of the tongue could be used by a defense attorney to claim a tainted jury pool. The silence is a shield for the prosecution. Nancy is still out there. The blood on the porch has been documented and analyzed. The timeline from 147 to 228 is etched in digital stone. The police have the suspect's gait, their height, and their unique behavioral quirks captured on high-definition video. They have the biological markers of the person who struggled with Nancy in those final 16 minutes. The investigation is not stalled. It is coiled and ready to strike. The family is waiting for a phone call that could come at any hour of the day or night. The search for Nancy Guthrie has become a masterclass in modern forensic persistence. The investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie currently stands at a critical and frustrating crossroads. Over 80 days have passed since she was forcibly taken from her home, and the trail has led directly into a complex federal laboratory. The FBI is not just assisting with basic paperwork. They're now in a high-stakes tug-of-war with the local Pima County Sheriff over the interpretation of critical biological evidence. Assistant Director Ben Williamson recently confirmed that the FBI has been seeking to retest specific DNA samples for over 2 months. They are using advanced technology that was reportedly bypassed when the local sheriff initially sent the material to a private lab. This internal friction suggests a major disagreement on how to handle the genetic profile of the suspect. While the authorities argue over protocols, the physical evidence continues to tell a grim story of resistance. Retired FBI supervisory agent Jim Clemente recently analyzed the blood spatter pattern on the porch and concluded that Nancy likely fought back against her abductor. The evidence suggests she was likely threatened with a firearm at the door and possibly struck in the face, causing the blood to be deposited on the porch before she was physically carried to a vehicle. This case remains a highly active search with a $1 million reward still standing for any proof of life or information leading to her recovery. Savannah Guthrie has returned to her anchor desk, but the heavy silence surrounding the investigation remains unbroken. The target emotion for everyone following this case is one of haunted vigilance. We are all waiting for the one forensic match that will finally explain why an 84-year-old woman was targeted with such calculated violence. The emotional journey has moved from the initial shock of the abduction to a deep and lingering unease about the safety of our own homes and the effectiveness of our justice system. The rewatch value of this case lies in the digital timeline. Every minute between the first heart rate spike and the final Bluetooth disconnection is a piece of a puzzle that is still being assembled in a lab in San Francisco. What this case teaches us about personal safety is that digital footprints are now as vital as physical ones. For those living alone or caring for elderly relatives, the integration of medical devices like pacemakers with home security systems provides a layer of forensic protection that was impossible a decade ago. Nancy's pacemaker did not just keep her heart beating, it acted as a silent witness to her final moments in that house. It provided investigators with an exact 18-minute window of activity that no suspect can ever erase or deny. As we look at the rising trends in residential abductions, the use of signal sniffers and digital forensics is becoming the new front line of investigation. This case serves as a stark reminder that even in the most secure neighborhoods, our technology is often the only thing left to tell our story when we cannot speak for ourselves. We will continue to cover every single forensic development and every announcement from the FBI as they narrow the search for the person behind the mask. The house in the Catalina foothills is silent for now, but the data is still speaking. Subscribe to Tracking Evil with John and stay connected to this investigation as we wait for the lab results that will finally break this gag order. We are not turning away until Nancy Guthrie is found. For now, the digital clock is still ticking and the search continues.